Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Atlanta-based jazz vocalist VA, or Virginia Schenck. We talked to her on May 14th, 2020 about this surreal new COVID-19 jazz world. We talked about how it all began, what she has been doing during quarantine, and hope for the future, along with a lot more. Enjoy.
Hey, Virginia, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're sure welcome. Glad to speak with you, Joe.
So I guess I just kind of want to talk about this new, very surreal, weird COVID-19 world we're living in. And I did notice on social media that I guess there was a radio personality that passed away.
Yes, I'm here in Atlanta, and WCLK, Jay Edwards, died. I don't think it was from COVID. I don't have the particulars, but he had not been well for about a year, but a real stalwart in the jazz community in Atlanta. He was in New York for many years. He was Harlem born and raised, and just really knew jazz, knew the artists. It's a huge loss for us in Atlanta.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it seems like he was a great soul. I guess I kind of want to have some conversations with musicians about this world that we're in now, and I want to go back to the beginnings. When did you know that the massive domino was getting ready to fall? When did shows start getting canceled? You started kind of sensing, we're heading into something.
Well, I was just in New York right around the 1st of March, and I even thought it was dicey to go then. In Atlanta, I live very near the CDC. I have friends and, parents of other kids when I was raising my daughter who have worked at the CDC or work in epidemiology. And so I was getting some wind that way. But by the end of March, I would say it took a little while for things to become very clear, so that it was, working it out with the venues, with the audience, for everyone to kind of catch up with, okay, this is not going to happen. It's very sad, very, very sad.
It's staggering the amount of shows that just one musician is canceling.
Yeah, I know. Like everything.
So for you, yeah, right. So for you, for instance, how many things even up to this summer have you had to cancel?
I had a tour for my latest CD, Battle Cry. So it's called my Hear My Battle Cry tour, which I was taking to some of our civil rights museums, kind of working hand in hand to raise money and awareness for them, because it's civil and human rights oriented. So I would say I had, a good, I was supposed to be teaching out in Arizona this month, 6, 7, 8 things just leading up to right now. And things are rescheduled for fall. Some places have not rescheduled, and, I think it's still, we don't know. What is it going to look like? Will it be viable if I agree to show up, if my band agrees to show up? How many people will show up to the event? Is it worthy of each part of that, a trio happening, really, that happens, right? The venue, the audience, the musicians, the performers. I mean, it's all got to work evenly to make it viable, or to make it satisfying. So it's a real conundrum. We're very grateful for radio right now, Joe.
Yeah, I know, and I'm really happy to not only get your music out, but to capture kind of the voices. You all are already pretty raw, and the one thing that strikes me about this time is that this jazz is improv, and this is like the ultimate act of improv right now. I mean, I think if there's a group of artists,
absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, and that's what when I teach vocalists about improvisation, it is all those parts. It's not just the musical skill. It's really embodying it and living it. So if we as jazz musicians don't know how to pivot, and I grew up in Florida, so, surfing is a metaphor for me. If we don't know how to ride the wave and negotiate the waves that are coming, I don't know who can.
Well, and I think the thing that's so reassuring about jazz musicians that I keep hearing over and over again is that no one's getting in this for the money. You all are a pretty adaptive, artistic race, and I think that you might be pretty well equipped to capture the essence of this once it's all said and done.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. That is true, and because we're creative, you know, we're looking for other ways to diversify the skill sets that we have. Like, for instance, I've just started an online kind of interviewing like you are me. I'm interviewing other, at the moment, vocal artists. You know, what's your vocal journey? How are you negotiating this time, just as you and I are talking about? And what is that, and how can we ignite passion for our planet to kind of keep everybody's head above water? Because the reality is worse than sobering. So how do we keep ourselves resilient in the resilience of the jazz medium? I mean, jazz was born out of a horrific situation of the enslaved Africans coming to American soil. I mean, it was a way of embodying something so painful and such loss and creating something new out of it. So you're right. The other thing I've been thinking about, Joe, too, is that looking back in history to the Spanish flu in 1819, right after that we had the Roaring 20s. So, you know, y'all watch out. Once we get through this, the creativity really could be out the roof, and a lot of new forms that we might see happening.
Yeah, you know, I was reminded that the race riots pretty much decimated and destroyed jazz clubs around the time that Coltrane made Love Supreme. Just think about that.
Yeah, wow, right?
You know,
yeah.
And then think about all of the creativity from that golden era, and they were inventing bebop at a time of post-war and racism when there weren't commercial labels saying, we need you to market something. They were doing it because they felt like it.
That's right.
You know, so, yeah, the birth of idioms, the birth of new things, I think it's big. I mean, I guess Nicholas Payton's already made 2 albums. One, you know, Quarantine, I can't remember the name of it, but he's had 2 albums. And
yes.
On one album cover, he has, like, a full, like, hazmat suit on. So there's people that are already kind of embraced, you know, which...
I know it. That's right.
So, but I guess the thing is now, what do you hope both musician and the audience gets from this absence of live music?
Well, certainly it's sort of like absence makes the heart grow fonder. That how much we relish and appreciate live music. I mean, I'm very gratified for recorded music, don't get me wrong. But the other side of the coin is what happens in the live moment. Human to human, breath to breath, eyeball to eyeball, things that just can only happen in the moment. So I hope that we really appreciate that so much more. And you know, live music is enlivening. There's nothing like feeling the vibrations and the reverberations in each venue, in each spot, and the social atmosphere of that. I mean, humans are social creatures. You know, some of us are more introverted than others, but we are social creatures. And so I really hope that we will be celebrating the resilience of the human spirit when we can come back together.
You know, it's rare that I run into somebody. There's been a few people that I talk to that are doing the same thing, kind of incubating this unique time in history through interview. So my question to you is this. How essential do you think this is, functionality of doing this, of capturing all these jazz voices now?
Oh, I think it's very important. I think it'll be more important when we start looking back at what we were feeling, what we were thinking, what we were saying, how we were dealing with it. It may be even different a month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now. I think capturing it, we're capturing slices of history. So I'm thrilled you're doing this, Joe.
Well, thank you. I think it's been something I just personally, when this started in mid-March, I just was in shock. I was hard to listen to music. I just didn't know what was happening. And then it was like this is probably the time to reach out. This is probably the time to start capturing the voices, because as far as I'm concerned, I find jazz people to be some of the most humble, talented, grounded people that are already raw. And then you add on top of it a pandemic and the uncertainty and the ambiguity that goes into not only what you guys are feeling, but all of us are feeling. I think the interesting thing that I'm realizing out of this is I used to always ask, and I'm sure I asked you in our interview, how healthy is jazz? And I know now, because the amount of shows, festivals, and gigs that are canceled by one musician is unreal.
Yeah, unreal. Absolutely. It is healthy. And, you know, think of how jazz has infused and been interjected in so many other subgenres in music. We could go on and talk about that. You know, there would be no rock and roll without jazz. And there's so many kinds of jazz. So, I mean, that's really exciting. Even if you are someone who loves staying, you know, right steeped and straight ahead, awesome. That's great. But think of all the ways that people take that and improvise just off of that. I find it, the creativity is staggering. So I love it. I love it all. I really do.
Yeah, I think that's the thing out of this. The bottom line is you got to hold on to hope, and you got to find a way through this. And I think what we might find out through this is that musicians are frontline workers. I think that if we didn't have art during this time, the dark would be awfully, awfully dark.
Oh, gosh, I have goosebumps just hearing you say that, and I think it totally is true. There's nothing like, you know, the pandemic with it really pulling the rug out from under us of seeing what your priorities are.
And also we have to understand that not only are we not in control, but Mother Nature will come through and say, you know what, Venice probably needs to have clear lakes or have a clear waterway with jellyfish. That's just the way it works.
Unbelievable. It is.
Yeah.
You know, here in Atlanta, we have just an explosive spring. We're now heading into summer, hitting the 90 degrees, I think, this weekend. But to be inside watching Mother Nature just explode in absolute glory has been amazing while we're all dealing with this pandemic. Mother Nature carries on. Yes.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Well, hey, thank you for taking some time out. I really appreciate you opening up about this surreal David Lynch world we live in, and good luck with everything.
Absolutely, Joe. Thank you so much, and wishing all the best and health and love and positive vibes to everybody in your family, friends, and your audience.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest singers in Atlanta, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Virginia for her time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.